Have you ever been scrolling on social media and come across one of those videos that says, if you don't clean your room, then you have a high IQ, or if you do such and such, then you have ADHD, or if you don't socialize every day, then you have autism, or, there's a million different TikToks like this, right? That say, if you do such and such, then you have such and such, right? Now, obviously, a lot of people don't take this as, at face value. And I'm not saying most people don't. Most people don't. But there are a lot of people that this is affecting in their brain. It's affecting their biases long term. And it's happened to me, if I'm honest. And I think it happens to everybody to some degree. Now, it's very easy to see these type of videos and go, "Oh my god, that's me. That's literally what I do." Maybe I have a high IQ or I have, ADHD, and then you kind of start self-diagnosing or self-applying these characteristics to yourself without actually realizing the true nuances that come with those like diagnoses, right? Humans have a very hard time judging how much they truly understand something, okay? And I'm so guilty of this in all honesty, but I think it's fair to say that most people are. Most people are, but there's no excuse for me. Humans can't judge always how much they truly understand something, and sometimes they mix that up with confidence. And that's really what I want to talk about today is that balance between confidence and understanding, okay? Because I feel like nowadays there's a more vocal group that mistrusts experts and expertise in a lot of fields. And this has been, a theme throughout history where, a lot of people don't trust experts or expertise in certain fields because, they're put in like a higher echelon of society, or they feel like, they're hiding something from the public or something along those lines, right? And, in some cases, that can be true. There is some reason to mistrust experts to a certain degree, okay? Now, it's a problem when this mistrust becomes fully mistrust, where you go, I think this expert's totally wrong. He has no idea what he's talking about. Because then at that point, you're judging someone else's expertise that they put thousands of hours into when you've probably only done, tens of hours of research, if even that. So it's very I see it a lot more common now where people will dismiss experts a lot more easily without true criticism, because it's very important to criticize experts and expertise. But when that criticism isn't justified and it's not like a legitimate concern that you have, and it's more of you just don't want what you're hearing to be true, then that's when it becomes dangerous. And the reason I think it's amplified more now is it's simply because of the internet. The internet makes it a lot easier for your opinions to be backed up, right? It's a lot more easy for your opinions to be, supported by another group of people. So now we got a lot more individualized, and I think a lot of people realize this, that it's not so much that we're the same whole society that has kind of been for a while, and starting to shift into more individualistic points of views. And I'm not saying that you can't have strong opinions that you haven't put tens of thousands of hours into. I'm not saying that at all. But your confidence should track how much you truly understand a subject. So you could easily be confident on, a specific aspect of a topic and be, right about it and actually have true understanding of that topic. But you really got to sit yourself down and think, do I truly understand this? Can I explain this in layman's terms? I think explaining things in simple terms is one of the most, important skills to truly understanding something. Can you teach it to somebody? Can you answer questions about the topic that you're speaking on? These are all very important things that can easily get overlooked because you want to think that you understand things more often than you actually do. And, sometimes, I'll read, a chapter of a book and be like, oh, I have a way better understanding of this when I truly have just only hit, the tip of the iceberg for that topic. When I get overconfident on subjects and I just get excited. It's very easy to do. It's very easy for humans to do this. And experts do this too. They get, overconfident on certain things that they actually don't truly have an understanding of. And that's important to recognize for sure, that experts can definitely be wrong. But saying that they're all wrong and that it's some big conspiracy, that's when it gets dangerous, because is your understanding truly based on evidence? And a lot of the times I would say it's not. So it's very important to realize that a lot of these people, like, especially if you're critiquing experts, they've just simply put more time into the subject than you have. So you're, 10 minutes of researching the topic and then going, well, this person's wrong because A, B, and C. A lot of the times those experts already know about A, B, and C and have a response to that, but you're just not able to bring up that concern to them directly. So then you think that they're wrong in that area. You know what I mean? So one thing that you could do to try and limit this or mitigate it, or something I found useful in trying to mitigate it for myself in the past year or so, is acknowledging. Acknowledging is the first step, okay? Acknowledging that, humans have biases and that your understanding truly sometimes doesn't really match the confidence that you have in a topic. And this is true in sports. A lot of people will watch sports, they'll go, "Oh, LeBron James, he's not going to do that good this year. I saw his training videos. He's not going to do good." And they'll be so confident in their opinion, and then he goes out and averages 30 points a game, which if you don't know basketball would be like really good. But just examples like that where it's like people don't truly understand what they understand. If that makes any sense, for lack of a better word. It's very easy to be more confident in a subject than your true understanding. So acknowledging is the first step, but that's not the only step, okay? The next step is to deliberately take action, okay? Deliberately take action to try and mitigate the damages of bias, okay? You're not going to fully eliminate it, and don't think that you could be perfect. But if you have to do it deliberately, though. That is the most important word in that, okay? Is deliberate, because if you don't do it deliberately, then a lot of the times you'll fall back into the same traps that your brain likes to go into, okay? So you have to deliberately go, I am making this mistake right now. How can I fix it? And then you could either track it, like write it down, which is what I do, but you don't have to do that. There's a bunch of different ways that you could do it. You could ask your friends to check on you and, call you out when you're wrong on something, or just something as simple as that. It could start very simply, and then you could build on that skill over time and improve on it. But so it's not just acknowledgement. I want to make that clear, because you could definitely acknowledge a lot of problems, but a lot of the times people don't do anything about it. And it's very easy to do, because you go, all right, I've acknowledged this problem. It's solved. I wish it were that simple, but a lot of the times acknowledging the problem is just the first step. And then the next step is taking deliberate action over long periods of time to slowly improve on that, right? It's not just a simple switch. I wish it was. Very occasionally, I think it can be, but I don't think most of the time that's true. And when I say occasionally, usually, I think something like perspective can really make someone change very quickly. Like just realizing that this is going to sound so stupid and kind of obvious, but that just people have other perspectives. Something like that, just thinking about that, can truly change your thought process pretty quickly and significantly. So I'm not saying that quick changes can't happen, but assuming that it's going to change so simply without, putting in a little bit of work, I think is absolutely ridiculous. But unfortunately, that's how people want to, fix their problems now. So look, sometimes you just got to take things a little slow. Take things a little slow. Build habits that can catch mistakes. And this has been a big part of Carl Sagan's book, who, if you don't know, is an astrophysicist who I've been reading up on a lot recently. I'm reading A Demon Haunted World. I'm only on like page 80, so I'm definitely not an expert on this topic, like I've been saying. But there has been a lot that I've already gathered from it. And it's mainly to do with, humans just having this bias and trying to eliminate that bias by, backing up your stances with data. That's not the only thing, though. Backing up your stances by looking at the counter arguments first, right? Looking at how are people opposing my view? You know what I mean? How are people seeing things differently? Because you're usually going to have a certain perspective on a topic without ever even thinking about the other perspectives, right? And you think that you are. That's why I say it's like very easy to be like, I'm very open-minded, because I consider all perspectives without actually researching and seeing the other perspectives. Then you're probably not that open-minded. It's very easy to think that you are. At the end of the day, we're all humans, right? So we all have to use our brains in these things, and there's always going to be bias, and trying to eliminate it totally is an unrealistic expectation. But deliberately taking action is the most important thing I'll take from this video. And remember, any view nowadays can be reinforced, okay? Through social media, through individualized groups of people. Any view you have can be reinforced. So just because something is reinforced doesn't mean that it actually has legitimate grounding in reality. And one more thing I want to add before I end this video is that we abandon this principle in politics, history, economics, and plenty of other subjects, like I already mentioned, like sports. But to get a little bit more serious in these topics, people want to understand these things, right? I truly do think a lot of people want to understand these things. And a lot of people also don't want to put in the time to understand these things. And that's okay. You don't have to. But to lie to yourself and think that you understand these topics more than you truly do can be harmful. And I'm not trying to be harsh here because I make the same mistake. I do. I really do. It's very easy to assume that you have a deeper understanding than you truly do. And this can be very harmful because this is when you start getting groups of people that will follow a certain person because they think that they have this total understanding of something when truly that understanding is just confidence and not, depth or nuance in that field. And I want people to be cautious of this. If we're talking on these subjects without that extra nuance or depth, a lot of the times you can get lost in the sauce and not really realize what you're talking about. There are some very good sources of information out there online, but understanding that confidence doesn't truly match understanding is very important. And I don't want to say do your own research because the problem with saying that is that people doing their own research a lot of the time will just look up what they want to hear and then they'll find what they want to hear. But what I would recommend is look up what opposes your view, okay? Look up what are people saying that is opposing my certain view on this topic. And that will truly make you understand a subject much better than any, supportive point that's just adding to the argument you already believe in, okay? Hope you guys have a great day. Live a great life. Take away hopefully something from this video. But if you didn't and you just agreed with it, then that's cool too. If you disagree with it, I would love to hear why. And I will see you guys in the next one.